Today, we're going to be talking about Gary Russell Jr. facing off against Mark Magsayo. We're going to break down really quick some stats, and then we're going to get right into fight prediction. Let's go. Looking at these two side by side first, let's start with age. Gary Russell Jr. is 33 years old. Magsayo is 26. Looking at height, Gary Russell is 5'4.5" or 164 centimeters. And Mark is 5'6" or 168 centimeters. Reach wise, Gary Russell has a 64-inch reach or 163 centimeters. Magsayo has a 68-inch reach or 173 centimeters. Now, the other thing to note about these two is KO percentage. Mark Magsayo has almost a 70% KO percentage, where Gary Russell, on the other hand, has a 56% KO percentage. And only one loss. His one loss is to Lomachenko. The other thing to note about these two is that Gary Russell is a southpaw and Magsayo is an orthodox fighter. Now let's talk about fight prediction. Okay, so looking at these two, there's a few things that stand out. One being that Gary Russell obviously is the champion here, and he's also someone that has quite the pedigree in terms of who he has fought. Mark, on the other hand, is someone that's an up-and-comer, someone that seems hungry and that is going after that WBC belt because he truly wants to be champion. Other than that, there's some things that I noticed people mention and then not mention about this fight. One of them being, people kind of notice that Gary Russell generally has been fighting only once a year for a while now. And then recently, he took the entire 2021 year off. So he basically hasn't fought almost in 2 years right now, where Magsayo has been fairly active and been going after becoming mandatory. Now, one thing that no one mentions about this fight, and I think it might be the key determining factor of who wins this fight, and that is, we got last week that Gary Russell Jr.'s father sadly had his foot amputated due to complications with his type 2 diabetes. Now, this means that he has not been in camp training his son. So Gary Russell now has a completely different camp for this fight, something that has not been normal for him, obviously, and that's going to change how he fights. Possibly it's going to change how his corner is going to be for this fight, especially if this is a tough fight, which I think this is going to be a tough fight. To me, this is an X factor, and it could be a huge factor because the way Gary Russell said, quote unquote, his training camp has been is chaotic. That is not good. That is not what you want to hear from a fighter going into a major world title defense. So, final prediction. Honestly, if you had put these two guys in front of me maybe a couple years ago, I would have put Gary Russell, especially because Mark does have the tendency to be hit. He is not someone that shies away from being in the phone booth and going at it with someone. He has defensive issues, and that would lead to Gary Russell, who throws punches and bunches and has really fast hands, to dominate a fighter like that. But with 2 years off and not having his father in his corner and having a chaotic type of training camp, I think that we're going to see an upset here. I think we're going to get a new champion, and I think Mark Magsayo, he's been wanting it. He's hungry, and Gary Russell just doesn't come off as that hungry to me. I think in the end, I am going to lean towards decision for Magsayo. I think he is going to pull it off, and it is going to be the first major upset of 2022. If you enjoyed this kind of content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. With that said, thanks for stopping by.